The Democrats haven't had a primary in like how many years? 12 years. Like, I mean,
with all due respect to Marianne Williamson, the only person who made an effort to actually fight and try to be a viable candidate was RFK.
Yeah, within the Democratic Party.
And as we come to the home stretch of this election, I do think that there is a RFK vote for Trump that people are not counting right now that is going to be a drastic mistake. And the reason I believe this, we have often said that the corporate takeover of our country has happened in a multitude of places, but one of the biggest places it's happened is in big agriculture. Our food and our soil is poisoned, and it's poisoned because of big oil, big agriculture, big pharma. It's all interconnected. And I have said, and as you have said, there are things that RFK talked about when he ran for president, when he wasn't going off the deep end, that made a lot of sense.
Yes, a broken clock can be right twice a day.
I would say he wasn't a broken clock right.
No, but I look, again, I said it before, I'd prefer him in a position of power in the health department over whatever pharma tool the Kamala administration
private equity taking over housing in this country. But here is RFK talking about what I do believe in this election, especially as we go forward, is maybe the core problem of what we're dealing with right now. And he's backing Trump. And I do believe that that could swing the election if it hasn't been swung already. So here's what he had to say.
All of the institutions of our government have been captured by the industries that they're supposed to regulate. The NIH, CDC, and FDA have been captured by the pharmaceutical industry and the medical cartel. People are making money on sick children and on keeping us sick. The insurance companies, the pharmaceutical companies, the healthcare companies, the hospitals, even the medical schools are all bought off and tied in by this kind of money, and they've turned our public health agencies predatory against the American public. The FCC, which I sued recently successfully, I sued them in the Court of Appeals in Washington, D.C. for lying to the American public about the safety of cell phones and of cell phone radiation. And they've been captured by the big telecom companies.
This is actually very true because there has been talk for a very long time about the importance of having a Bluetooth and not having your phone attached to your head. You know, basically like taking your phone and putting it to your bed.
I actually think that those ear pods are also going to end up being linked to problems.
They might.
My prediction.
Listen, as far as I'm concerned, everything is at risk. Just like drinking out of your tap water is a very big danger today.
Yeah, especially if you live in Michigan.
I also believe in, again, I don't know how much of this is a sway in this particular election. I do think that Tulsi, especially if Trump wins, maybe even if Trump doesn't win, is very likely to run for president in 28. And she would make a very viable first Madam President in terms of the way she presents herself as a candidate.
Oh, she's so much more capable than Kamala. And again, I have big issues with Tulsi. I'm not a fan. I think that she's kind of a fraud in a lot of ways. I am not a fan. But in terms of her being qualified and capable and being taken seriously on the world stage by other leaders, yeah, I find her infinitely more qualified for the position than Kamala. I mean, without a doubt, she's a much more serious person, and she knows a lot more about the world.
I really wonder how much these two people on the screen right now have actually moved the needle towards Trump over the past couple of months.
Well, he has. I don't know about her so much, but I think that her people were already kind of the people that were already on the fence to begin with. I think he definitely.
Especially because, remember, at one time during the Democratic primary, RFK was polling in the 20s, and they did everything in their capacity to shut him down and shut him out and paint him as a lunatic. And listen, he does. I don't agree with you, Tony. I don't think he's anti-vax.
No, but even if he is, I want to just say that, like, I saw that comment about you don't want an anti-vaxxer in the White House. I am not anti-pro, but whatever. And I do find that he has had very unpopular opinions on that. However, I don't find RFK to be authoritarian. I've said this also when we was talking about Andrew Yang running back in 20. my thought is that even if you don't agree with him on those things, this does not seem like the kind of person that would get into office as president and say, all right, I'm getting rid of all vaccines, we're getting rid of them. It doesn't work like that.
And this is what you have to ask yourself, Tony, and anybody else who is saying that somebody like RFK is an anti-vaxxer. Would you rather have an anti-vaxxer who actually is promoting healthy living and sustainable living, or would you rather have a person who promotes vaccines and promotes you living on big pharma for the rest of your life?
Well, promotes vaccines because of their wallet.
Correct.
More than anything else. So again, that's what I'm saying. Like, I definitely prefer him. If I had to pick somebody to be in charge of the CDC and the FDA, he'd be great at that.
100%.
What we need are people that are willing to speak truth to power, especially people that are willing to speak truth to corporate power in those positions. So I understand that people don't like that he's an anti-vaxxer. And even if that's true, I don't think that that's like his policy agenda. And I've heard him talk about a lot of things. Never once have I heard him say, I'm ending vaccinations. So I think that we need to be reasonable and not straw man him about that.
This is the biggest problem with him, bar none. And Sarah is correct. RFK is a Zionist.
Absolutely.
We are not dealing with a situation here where Jill Stein is going to win the presidency. And when you're stuck with the two major parties and they can't slurp Israel's.
And notice how I'm not saying I'm not promoting him for the position of Secretary of State. Correct. I'm saying I think that if he wanted to be in charge of health and human services, and be in charge of the NIH and the CDC and call them out in the FDA for all their complete I would say complicity with big pharma raping us. If he's willing to speak up to that, that's what we need in that position. And yes, he's a total Zionist.
And when you're talking about Secretary of State, the ultimate fuck you to Hillary Clinton is to make this woman the next Secretary of State. And Trump would do something like that because it's not that he's vengeful, but he's petty and he loves the fight. And he would love to. It's bad enough for him to win. It's another thing to literally put the woman who exposed Hillary Clinton and Debbie Wasserman Schultz like nobody else ever did in a real position of power that would set her up to potentially become a president in the future. And so,
and again, I'm not a supporter of Tulsi.
We're just observing this from a political.
Yeah, I'm not a supporter of Tulsi, and I'm not a supporter of RFK.
No, but you can see where these two in particular, I do believe, have had an impact in Trump's favor, basically barnstorming all over the country for the past couple of months in only the swing states. And that matters. The Democrats, you've got these two, and Kamala Harris has Liz Cheney.
And what's interesting is that these are two people that both in different times and ways and places tried to work within the Democratic Party. Both of these people are people that were assets for whatever reason or another, and were completely discarded, like the whole kit and caboodle. Whereas Trump is willing to talk to different people from different walks of life and incorporate what they're saying. And that to me gives me some sort of hope that there's a possibility for improvement there. Whereas Kamala's team will be made up of Goldman Sachs and Big Pharma. Like, I don't know how, it would look horrible.
We'll finish this up.
The EPA has been captured by the big polluters. The USDA has been captured by big ag. USDA was created to protect the small farmers and to ensure that we would have a wholesome food supply. But it does just the opposite. It's making war against small farmers. And it's ensuring that Monsanto and Cargill and the big chemical companies, Syngenta, et cetera, control our food supply and are able, without any kind of impediment, to poison the American public.
Is he wrong?
No, he's right. Again, that is exactly the kind of position you want someone who's willing to call out corporate greed in. That's that's the food and medicine version of what Lena Khan is doing over at the FTC. And that's another.
And this, more than any other reason, and you see, me want tacos. Leaving the Dems for the right isn't the answer. We got to move farther left. No, that's not the answer either.
No. I assure you. Me want tacos. I have moved way further to the left. I hear you. I agree. And again, we're not Trump supporters. We voted to the left. we voted as far left as we can actually get away with voting that makes it on the ballot in terms of like any potential.
I'm not as socially left as Jen is, but I am populist left when it comes to doing that. No.
I will say this about RFK, other than the Zio-Nazi position and other foreign positions, he comes off as very populist. And the way he speaks is very populist. And that appeals to people. People are sick of feeling like they're having the wool pulled over their eyes. People are sick and tired of feeling like they're being taken advantage of.
So today, Elon Musk came out and said, we have to get rid of Lena Khan. So now what you're seeing is the billionaire class, because you've got...
It's so brazen.
You've got like the top billionaires that are funding Kamala's campaign have all said that Lena Khan has to go. And now Trump's biggest benefactor is saying, Lena Khan has to go. So what that should tell you, to anyone who's paying attention, is that Lena Khan is the one truly effective appointee of the Biden administration, and the only one, because this is the only one anyone gives.
Yeah, she's not going to be able to stay there, unfortunately. But it's so amazing because this same nonsense has been going on for years. It's just the fact that it's all on social media and we're talking about it now. So whereas like 20 years ago, when the oligarchs would get rid of whatever cabinet members they didn't like, it was just done much more behind the scenes. Whereas now we just know about it. And it's just totally accepted that a bunch of rich people get to tell our executive branch who they should have in their cabinet.